100%. That is not a typo. That is the actual growth figure from two different Florida towns, 500 miles apart, in two different industries. One town's population grew by 108.44% in the last 5 years. Another town's home values grew by 108.47% in a decade, same first three digits. Different state of Florida, different buyers, different reason, and the same story keeps showing up in other Florida towns. Nobody is watching. Today we are walking through 7 Florida towns where growth has not just been fast, it has literally doubled, and it is not stopping. These are not the towns on every retirement list. These are the towns where the data caught up with the story before anyone wrote about it. One of them is named after 3 sisters from 1902. One is the indoor foliage capital of the world. One has more canals than Venice, Italy. And the number 1 town on this list is the one where 108 is the actual headline number. Stay with me to the end. The why behind these towns matters more than the numbers. Number 7 is Apopka in Orange County, northwest of Orlando. Apopka calls itself the indoor foliage capital of the world because the local economy was built on the ornamental nursery industry. Here's the part most people do not know. Apopka's longtime mayor, John Land, served 61 years in office, from 1949 to 2014. That is the longest-serving mayor in the entire history of the United States. Apopka's population has grown 116% since the year 2000, from 26,000 residents to over 59,000. The driver was simple. The Wekiva Parkway finally connected Apopka to Interstate 4 in 2018, and the farmland started turning into subdivisions overnight. Median income now sits over $88,000. Home values went up another 8% in 2024. Honest caveat, Lake Apopka, the town's namesake, is one of the most polluted lakes in Florida from decades of muck farming, and new subdivision runoff is making restoration harder. But for buyers who want Orlando access without Orlando prices, in a town with deep history and recent infrastructure, Apopka is the quiet doubler. Number 6 is Wimauma, just south of Tampa in Hillsborough County. The story behind the name alone is worth the trip. In 1902, a railroad captain named Davis founded the town, using the first letters of his 3 daughters' names, Willa, Maud, and Mary, Wimauma. Wimauma was incorporated in 1925, lost its government in the Great Depression, and only rediscovered the lost paperwork in 1993. Population has grown 104% since 2010, from 6,300 to over 13,000, and Hillsborough had to build a new public school just to handle the surge. Wimauma now has a 5.5-acre Crystal Lagoon at South Shore Bay, plus the Valencia Lakes 55-plus community. Honest caveat, Wimauma has the highest poverty rate on this list at over 23%, and median income remains under $70,000. The new arrivals are wealthier than the legacy farm worker community, creating a 2-tier town. But the doubling is real, lagoon homes are selling, and Tampa families priced out of Brandon and Riverview are landing here every single week. Number 5 is Port St. Lucie on the Atlantic coast, an hour north of Palm Beach. Port St. Lucie has the cleanest single-decade home price, doubling anywhere in Florida. From 2010 to 2019, median home values grew 128.9% from $106,000 to $242,000. The town is Florida's 8th largest city by area, over 120 square miles, and was the 5th fastest growing city in America from 2020 to 2022. The driver was the affordability sandwich. Port St. Lucie sat between expensive Vero Beach to the north and even pricier Palm Beach Gardens to the south, so anyone priced out of either market landed there by default. Add tradition, the master plan community, and the New York Mets spring training facility, and you get a city that doubled by accident. Honest caveat, the market has flipped. In 2025, 33% of homes carry price reductions, sales are down, and 17% of properties carry severe flood risk. The doubling already happened. The question now is whether buyers get in before the next wave. Number 4 is Cape Coral on the southwest Gulf Coast, just north of Fort Myers. Cape Coral has more navigable canals than any city on Earth. Over 400 miles of canals, more mileage than Venice, Italy. Cape Coral also has the largest burrowing owl population in Florida. Population has grown 117% since 2000, from 103,000 to 224,000. Lee County is now adding roughly 1,900 new residents every month. Here is the wildest part. After Hurricane Ian destroyed swaths of Cape Coral in 2022, building permits did not slow down. Lee County issued over 24,000 permits in January 2023 alone during the rebuild surge. The hurricane increased construction activity. Honest caveat, and this one is heavy. Cape Coral is the epicenter of the Florida condo bust. Condo values are down 32% from peak and now sit below 2005 levels. 89% of properties carry severe flood risk over the next 30 years. The growth is real, but so is the climate exposure, and any buyer needs to factor flood insurance and rebuild risk into the math. Quick break before the top 3. If you're following the I-4 corridor pattern across these towns, I have a whole video on Florida towns growing faster than anyone predicted, with several of these towns covered differently. Hit subscribe and stay with me, because the number 1 town is where 108 is the actual published number, and the story behind it is the wildest one yet. Number 3 is Navarre, in the Florida Panhandle on the Emerald Coast between Pensacola and Destin. Navarre is where the 108 number actually shows up in the home price data. Cumulative 10-year home appreciation in Navarre is 108.47%, an annual average of 7.62% every year for a decade. That is one of the cleanest single-decade doubling rates anywhere in Florida, and Navarre is not even an incorporated city. Navarre is unusual for another reason. If officially incorporated, it would be the largest city anywhere between Pensacola and Tallahassee. Median income sits over $105,000, about 1.4 times the Florida average. Navarre also has the longest fishing pier on the Gulf of Mexico at 1,545 feet. The driver is military. Eglin Air Force Base and Hurlburt Field anchor the economy with thousands of military families, and overflow buyers from the 30A Beach corridor have been pushing inland to Navarre for years. Honest caveat, this is hurricane country. Aaron, Opal, George, Yvonne, Dennis, and Sally have all caused storm surge damage in Navarre in the last 30 years. The growth is real, so is the risk. Number 2 is Lakewood Ranch, just east of Sarasota, straddling Manatee and Sarasota counties. Lakewood Ranch is the number 1 best-selling multi-generational master-planned community in the entire United States and has held that ranking for 6 straight years. It spans over 33,000 acres across 2 counties, larger than 90% of incorporated Florida cities, and it is not even technically a city. From 2019 to 2025, Zillow's home value index for Lakewood Ranch went from around 315,000 to over 619,000. That is essentially a 100% doubling in 6 years. Even more telling, 43% of new buyers are relocating from out of state, mostly Chicago, New York, and Miami. The driver was the pandemic remote work wave plus A-rated schools, the Lakewood Ranch Medical Center, and the opening of Waterside Place in 2021. Honest caveat, inventory surged in 2025 and the buyer's market is back. The Zillow index is now down 7% year over year. The doubling already happened. And the number 1 Florida town on this list is Davenport in Polk County, in the famous Four Corners area where I-4 meets US 27. Davenport's population grew 108.44% since 2020, from 9,700 residents to over 20,000. That is the cleanest 108% figure in the entire state. Davenport sits 12 miles from Walt Disney World, halfway between Orlando and Tampa, and was once home to a failed amusement park called Boardwalk and Baseball that the Kansas City Royals used for spring training. The park was demolished in 2005 and turned into Posner Park Mall. Polk County is now the fastest-growing county in Florida, and Lakeland was the second fastest-growing metro in America during the pandemic. Davenport is the heart of Florida's vacation rental investor market, with thousands of short-term rentals in Champions Gate and Reunion Resort. Honest caveat, Davenport has the highest foreclosure rate on this list, with 14% of properties in foreclosure in one local zip code, and home prices are down 5% year over year. Short-term rental investor exposure makes Davenport more volatile than family-occupied towns. If Disney tourism softens, Davenport feels it first. But the population number speaks for itself. 108.44% in 5 years, the cleanest doubling figure in the entire state. And one bonus closer worth knowing. Babcock Ranch in Charlotte County went from 0 residents in 2018 to over 15,000 by the end of 2025. It is the first town in America powered entirely by solar, with 870 acres of panels generating 150 megawatts. It never lost power through Hurricane Ian, Helene, or Milton. 18 to 25 new families move in every week. It is at 25% of planned build-out. So while the 7 towns above doubled, Babcock Ranch grew by over 1,100%, and almost nobody outside Southwest Florida is talking about it. Those are the 7 Florida towns that grew 108% and will not stop. The bigger story is the cross pattern. The I-4 corridor is doing the heavy lifting, hurricane refugees are driving inland migration, and master-planned communities like Lakewood Ranch and Babcock Ranch are eating Florida town by town. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these towns surprised you most, and which one will you actually look up tonight? Drop it in the comments. And if you want to know which Florida towns are quietly seeing home prices fall up to 40% while these 7 are still booming, I have a full breakdown waiting. See you in the next one.